topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Legacy Leavers series on Success Secrets Exposed. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time or Wednesday mornings in Australia on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. The series showcases experts, changemakers, and disruptors leaving a lasting legacy with those sharing their wisdom with the world.
Good morning, good day, and good afternoon to you all. Sally here from Success Secrets Exposed. I'm super excited to be sharing with you today. We've got a lovely guest that's going to be talking to us about intuitive leadership. And our guest today is Laetitia Andrac, who's the founder of Essential Shift Consulting. Now, she empowers impact-driven entrepreneurs and leaders to seamlessly blend intuition and strategy to create sustainable businesses that serve people, profit, and the planet. Her focus is on helping individuals unlock intuition as a competitive advantage, making space for it and embracing its cyclic processes. Beyond her consulting work, Laetitia is developing an Understanding Zoe, which is a tech solution designed to simplify service coordination for neurodivergent children and their families. She believes that everyone is intuitive and that trusting your intuition can lead to greater profitability and authentic success. Today, we're going to learn about intuition and how it can transform leadership and why listening to our inner guidance might just be the edge our businesses need. So please help me welcome to this show, Laetitia.
Thank you. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you. Lovely to have you. And I know we were just having a chat about the craziness of the weather going up from one extreme of heat to the other. So nice to have another Australian on the show with us today that understands the dramatic changes we've been having.
Yes, totally. It's real. Whoever said that climate change is not existent, it's time to realize it is.
Definitely, with all of those changes, and it was lovely to connect with you, and it was such a nice surprise to have the connections through Andrew Woodward, who also has been on the show and has been instrumental in helping my son and I with our investments. So, lovely to connect those dots between people and how people come together as a collective of, a collective network, which I think is something quite extraordinary as well. So thank you for joining us today. I always love to kick it off with how did you discover and what brought you to where you are now? So what's the backstory, as we always like to start with?
I love having the opportunity to give the backstory, and I always feel that it's a 40 years backstory. So the more I grow up, the more the story expands. But
Yes.
If I go back to my early childhood, I grew up in a very small town in the south of France, in the French Riviera, hence my accent. And I was taught from a very young age about intuition and healing and the connection to the cycle of nature. I come from a family of healers in the south of France. And I just lived this beautiful childhood connected to nature, going for bushwalk and all of this connection with the season and so on. But then my brain took me into a different path, which is I was identified as a high potential student. So I was promoted to go into the best business schools and the best schools in France through the beautiful system in France, which supported me through scholarship. And then I went on and had a beautiful career in Paris, where I was a strategy consultant. I was on the top of my game, as you have American listener here. I was working with Mike Bloomberg on Mike Bloomberg philanthropy program with European cities. I was really thriving in leading big teams and big projects that were impact driven, but I was not really looking after myself and after the cycle of the season and resting and nurturing my soul. So I basically burnt out after 7 years working in strategy consulting. And at that time, I took some time off, which led me to feeling the intuitive pull to go to Australia. And so we packed everything, rented our apartment in Paris, and moved to Australia with 30 kilo in our luggage. I was 30 at the time with a contract in Australia. The plan was to stay here for 3 years. 10 years later, we're still here. And
we have that tendency, yes.
So Australia became home, and in Australia, my journey took me through different areas of creating businesses within corporate as an intrapreneur and outside of corporate as an entrepreneur. And I am now running 2 businesses at the same time, one consulting business and one AI tech business. And I'm just loving this path that I went through, which now feels a big connection to everything that I have built in my career, because when I was in Telstra, when I moved to Australia, I was leading strategy, AI, and big data. So I feel like everything is now in a place where I was guided to be there, and I'm loving it. I'm really in a place.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that you talked about your experience in France and the childhood of nature, and what for me sounded like pure flow, and then coming into the mind side of things, where we sort of tend to get a bit more, from my experience, feel a bit more rigid, and then we sort of come back to that flow. So thank you for sharing that with us. In the world that is, that from a strategy, the world loves, that logic, that data. And people do struggle to maintain that level of strategy. And I could say this from my own experience, when you're in that, get stuff done, and you're in that real strategy space, it does tend to, rock the boat as it relates to the intuition. So can you walk us through some of that element, and what is it that when we skew over that way, that is actually rocking the boat for us?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And for me, it's really, they need to go hand in hand. I'm not someone who you just lead with your intuition, or you just lead with strategy and data. I'm really that bridge which invites everyone to honor those different parts of yourself. And there are moments in your career where you're going to rely more on your intuition, and moments where you're going to rely more on data, knowledge, expertise, and strategy. But what is really important is to always make space for both. And what I notice, a lot of leaders, a lot of entrepreneurs that I help, or that I've had the opportunity to meet or support or talk to, is there is this overemphasis towards data, towards strategy, towards action, rather than taking a pause, taking a moment to reflect. And there is no better time. It's so timely that we record this at this time of year, where everyone is rushing towards doing all of the things, in the doing, when actually there is power in those moments to be and reflect and sit down and pause and be like, what worked? What did I enjoy doing? And listening to the whisper of your intuition, making space for those moments where you just witness all the things that you've harvested along the year, and what are those things that you really want to seed again and plant again next year? What are the things that you actually don't want to do anymore, that you want to get rid of? And this is where what I have noticed is there is this hyper focus towards result and doing, rather than hyper focus towards making space for the intuition, making space for the reset, the reflection. And so I'm really building that in people, which is allowing this not to be a 50-50. You have moments where you rely more on your intuition. You have moments where you rely more on other things, but please always do make space for both.
Yeah, beautifully said. And you're so right. This time of year is such a great time to reflect. And I'm having lots of those conversations with people around what worked, what didn't work, what are we keeping, what are we not keeping. But to get the answers to that, we actually do need to have those pauses and listen. And not be busy in the other listening, but listen, that internal listening. So thank you. Yeah.
And very often when people tune in and listen in, they actually know the answers. And I have 16, 17 years now of consulting. And what we say about the work that I do is I ask you for your watch and I read the time on your own watch. But sometimes you can't see the time on your own watch. You need someone else to reflect, to help you to see that time, but you actually had the time already. So you had the answer within you. And I find a lot of people are trying to find the answer outside, comparing, looking at someone else's result, looking at someone else. But those people may be in a different path, may have a different mission, a different vision, different values. So as humans, we love to compare because it's a sign of I belong. But sometimes there is power in knowing what you stand for and knowing for yourself what does success means for you. Because my success is very different to anyone else's definition of success. And that goes back to the values and what I stand for and the mission. And with the Essential Shift, it's very different to many other consulting firms. I only serve people who have positive impact on people or planet while making profit. So I have people who approach me who are basically destroying the planet. I'm like, nope, can't do this consulting project for you, but I can send you to someone else. But then I may have said no to, a few 100K projects, which then affects my bottom line, but I'm happy with it.
Yes. Yeah, beautiful. And for those that are in the intuitive space and I'll call it the legacy space, let's call it that legacy space, what do you determine as somebody that's creating the right impact? So just expand on that for us so we've got that crystal clear as we go through the rest of the interview today.
Definitely. So for me, the impact is really coming from, are you leaving the world in a better state than you found it? So whatever you creating through your business, through your content, through the message that you share, through the stands that you take on stage or in whatever ways, you are committed to creating a better world. So rather than taking, you're giving back. So it's really that approach of, are you creating a business that will reduce waste? Or are you creating a business that is empowering others to feel better? Are you creating, so it can be in the health space, it can be in the sustainability space. I really support business owners who have this impact-driven approach. And it's really, I want to leave the world in a better place than I found it.
Yeah, perfect. And I wanted you to express that further because obviously part of our series, being the Legacy Leavers series, is, really fine-tuning that so we can get those messages and find the collective within those messages to create those greater impacts. So thank you for highlighting that further. I'm just going to sort of backtrack a little bit because you mentioned burnout from yourself, and I've certainly, the audience knows I've had burnout periods over my lifetime as well. So many entrepreneurs do face that burnout possibility despite their best efforts. Why do you think this happens, and what role does intuition play in potentially overcoming it or preventing it?
Preventing it. I'd like everyone to prevent burnout, but sometimes it's overcoming it, unfortunately. So around the burnout, I wrote a book which is called Light It, How to Trust Your Intuition and Build a Thriving Business. And in that book, I share a framework which I didn't create. It was created by a researcher in the US, which explains the 12 different signs of burnout and the 12 different levels of burnout. And what I too often see is people reach the level 12 of burnout, which I'm guilty of reaching over 10 years ago, which is I can't move. My body is collapsing and I just need to stop working for a few months. And for some people, it's a few years. And this is a 12, like the last level of burnout. So what I'd like for people to go through is having this listening to their intuition, who is telling us, slow down. Hey, why are you rushing? Is this something that really need to be done right now? Or can you go for that walk? Can you have that moment of reset? Can you eat good food? Can you go to bed early? Like listening to, this little whisper before it becomes a scream that you cannot listen to because it's a scream in your ears and your body won't follow. And then you reach that state. And for some people, and unfortunately, that's a reason why I wrote my book. One of my colleagues died of cancer in 4 weeks. And that's why I decided to write that book for people, like literally people die from burning themselves out to the level of their body collapse in a way that is uncurable. So I'm not saying this to scare anyone listening to this, but it's listen to the whispers so that you can prevent burnout. But then when you're burning out, make space for those whispers to be expressed, which is what I did. And that's how I felt called to move to Australia, changing my life. I knew that by changing my environment, it wouldn't be enough. You know how we say you can change your habit in the same environment, but sometimes it won't suffice. And this is what happened after taking a month off from my career as a strategy consultant. I went back, I told the partner, and I was like, I need accommodation, I need a different ways of working, and they're like, but you're going to be promoted partner, we need you to work harder. I was like, I can't. I have voiced my need, you're not listening, so I'm going to resign. And I resigned and I moved to Australia. Like, I knew that I needed to reinvent a lifestyle that was fitting around my needs. So really inviting people to, before burnout, listening to those whispers so that you can make space for rest. And if you hit burnout, again, making that space to listen to what needs to shift in your life so that you can make space. And a lot of people are like, oh, you were such in a privileged situation that you could allow yourself to take time off, you could allow yourself to move to Australia and so on. I come from a family where we had nothing. I built everything through those years of career. And this is where, you know, you mentioned the beautiful Andrew. This is where people like Andrew can help you set the foundation. I didn't need Andrew at that time. I set those foundation for myself, but you can find someone who will help you set those foundation where then you can allow yourself to step away and make space to rebuild yourself after a burnout. We all have this ability, and you all have a network that you can rely upon to then support you in that journey.
Yeah. And I think part of, if I'm being reflective again, part of that journey when you actually do stop and pause, you actually realize who you've actually got around you, and how willing they are to help. But when we're in that busy mode, we sort of don't see all of the, I usually say, the opportunities around us, but the network that we have around us and the people that are there to, you know, pick us up if we need it, or hug us, or, you know, help us because we've relocated and we don't have any furniture, give, you know, a lounge or whatever. There's all those really, really, really simple gifts that we only see when we pause enough to allow us to see who we've actually got around us, and where those little magic moments and opportunities come from.
And that's why, you know, so in the book I write about the light framework, and the G of the light stands for gather. And I'd love for everyone, as we approach the end of the year, to maybe pause and reflect, who are the 10, 20 people who you want to say that you're grateful for this year, and you send them a letter. How often do we send letters? So I know I'm going to do that as I'm disconnected. Like, today is my last day of working. So I will sit down tomorrow and Friday, and I will write those letters, and I will send it out. Or if I don't have their, you know, postal address, send them a very personalized email saying how grateful I am for whatever they helped me with this year. Very often we don't take the time to reflect on who is around us, and we only gather them in moments of needs. But it's also important in moments that you're good to say how grateful you are for the little things. You know, this mom from school who picked up Zoe and Lou a few times in the last 3 months as I was running like a crazy person, 3 different things at once. It's like those people picked up some of the work to help me as the impact that I'm set to have. So I'm getting emotional. My voice got off here. I was like, oh my God, I'm so grateful.
Exactly. Thank you. I'm glad you actually touched on that, because when I was doing my research, I actually saw the light framework, and I actually have screenshotted it. So can I ask you to actually talk through the 5 steps of framework? Because for me, I found this personally very profound, and I think it's really relevant for that conversation that we're all asking ourselves of, you know, what's coming in for the new year, which comes back to that what worked, what didn't work. So over to you to explain the light framework.
Of course. So the light framework is an approach for any business owner or leader who are ready to listen to their intuition so that they can create the business or the way of leading that is truly intuitive. So the way, and I explain it in more detail in the book. So today I will go just high level, and then you can go and grab a copy of the book or listen to it on Audible or Spotify Premium, whatever you want. But it's the first step is the L of the light, which is lean in. So if you are leaning in and making space to listen to your intuition and to the visions that you have, the missions that you have in your life, in your business, the legacy that you want to leave, then it's about leaning in. And again, I'm not a financial advisor, so I wouldn't say that as a financial advisor, but here it's about putting all your eggs in the same basket. You are going after that thing for the next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years, because you have this pool, like we did when we're like, okay, let's move to Australia. Or like we did when I was like, okay, I'm going to launch this business. Or like I did when I say yes to onboarding and serving these clients. Those moments where you lean in fully, there is no halfway there. You're either in or out. So leaning in is very important. If you listen to your intuition, you need to go all in. Otherwise, you're not getting the rewards or the risk and the lessons, and failure is a gift. And I failed many times. So that's the first thing. Then the second step of the life framework is the I for illuminate. And this is where I weave together intuition and strategy, because what we do is we map backwards through the illumination map from your vision to today's step. What are the things that you're going to do today that are going to compound so that you achieve your vision within a year, within 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever is the timeline that you've set in your lean in, then you're doing it. Whether it's publishing a book, whether it's starting a podcast, starting a show on the radio, being on TV, whatever is your dream, working backwards is very important. And this is a methodology that I learned in strategy consulting 16 years ago. Now there are books about it, and I do a chapter about it in that book. So it's called Illumination. Then we have the G, which we mentioned quickly, which is for gather. So it's gathering within you, your strengths, your expertise, your knowledge, what is backing you to take that leap forward, and gathering around you, gathering with, as I talk in the book, which is gathering with your village. Who are those people that can help you achieve this vision? The worst thing you can do when you have a dream is doing it alone. When you share with people about your dream, so many people are willing to help. And with Understanding Zoe, which is my brand new business, only 3 months old, I have around me researchers from Oxford University, MIT, Cambridge University, who are giving me their time because I reached out. Do you want to be part of this? Yes, they do. Gather, so important. Then the H, which is the harder part for everyone, is honoring. And you put all the work. So now it's about pause, reflect, reset, and wait. This is the moment of receiving. And we are in a society where it's just about go, 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 rather than sitting there and receiving the gift of all the labors that you've done. My grandparents were farmers, and there were seasons where they were just sitting in the couch waiting because there is nothing to do. And I remember my grandpa was like, this is not the time for harvest. This is not the time for seedling. It's the time for resting. And this moment of honoring, everyone struggles with it in our society, yet it is essential. So right now we're going to have the big summer break in Australia. Rest, reset, gather your strengths for next year. And then the T is transform. You've received, you've transformed, you've achieved your vision, you've achieved what the goals that you've set to do, following your intuition, putting the strategy and the step forward. Now it's time to celebrate. Take a moment to witness what you've achieved. Take a moment to witness the transformation, and then you can move forward. And that's why it's a cyclical framework. You can move forward with the next lean in. But how many people just don't stop to look at the transformation? Oh, they're just like, okay, I've done this. Now it's done. Let's move to the next thing. No, let's stop. And let's be like, oh my gosh, look at what I did. Look at this. It was just an idea 6 months, a year, 2 years ago. Now it's here. Let's not move to the next thing yet. Let's witness like the butterfly, looking at its wing and being like contemplating and being like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Take a moment.
I think that's so important. I've just written that down in my words as not the whole lot, but it was ask, receive, and celebrate. And I think as entrepreneurs, especially as they go full on, we actually don't stop, which is why I want to keep coming back to this pausing, because we're in the right
Yeah.
time of year for it, is we don't actually stop to acknowledge or even see the celebration that we've had. And as a result of not doing that, we actually miss seeing all of those little tiny elements, or those tiny defining moments, or the compounding impacts that have been created, that have created the whole, which is often, someone's passing flippant comment, or a conversation that's come out. And I know something really profound that happened for me this time. I think it was this time last year, when I was talking to one of the coaches that I was working with, and we were just having this conversation. It was just really random, and we were back and forwards. And he said to me, "Sally, don't you just help people monetize their content?" And the case of the blinding obvious, because I hadn't worked, I'd had all of these catchy, cute little titles, and it was like, hell yeah, that's exactly what we do. But because I was sitting inside my own jar, I couldn't read the label on the outside, but he just defined it straight away. That to me was a magic moment that came out of a conversation. But when I look at and reflect on that moment, and then all of the others that occurred before that, and then after that, as a result of that, that's those things to celebrate or acknowledge and celebrate, but also have the gratitude over and be thankful for. So I think that only occurs when you create the gift for yourself of that pausability, or that pausing moment.
Yes. Yes, and there is a big thing that I wrote about during COVID, which was around rituals. And
Mm,
in my family, we had rituals, and it was so important to have those ritualistic practices to
mm,
end something and start a new season.
mm.
Gather during the harvest before we start the winter. All of those tradition of gatherings, those rituals, whether you celebrate Christmas today or you celebrate those kind of thing, like those rituals, make it meaningful. Don't just make it commercial, make it meaningful. Take a moment. Like we have this jar in the family that every Sunday, each of us, Zoe is 8, Louis is 6, Johan, my husband, and I, we fill it with every week one thing that we've achieved and one thing we're grateful for. And at the end of the year, before the 1st of January, we open it on the 31st of December, and we look through those 52 weeks, and we look at all of the things, and it reminds us of the
Yes.
tiny things that we've done every week. And then we can set the new year intention from a place of, I am not starting from zero. I'm
Yeah.
starting from that place where I have harvested all of these learnings, all of
Yes.
these memories, all of it, because we move too quickly. There is no rituals. We need more rituals. We need more practices like this. Very simple, and they don't have to be attached to any God, goddesses, beliefs. Like I'm open to any ways that you can bring it into your life. It can be secular rituals, but just bringing it into your life, again, the power of rituals. I think we're just in this world where it's bad to believe in something, so we just walk away from any rituals. But those rituals were bringing us together and having moments of contemplation, like we still have those moments where someone dies, we gather, and this is a
Mm,
beautiful way to remember that person, their legacy. So
yeah.
let's keep those moments, the menarche ritual that exists in ancient practices and that I'm bringing back now with my own family. It is when you have those rites of passage, we say in France, I don't know the English word for that,
Yep.
but like this
Yes.
moment
Yep.
where you're changing, you're becoming an adult, or you're getting
Mm.
married. Let's have those moments of celebration.
Yes, and I love the what you've talked about with, capturing all those little moments and then celebrating it as a family, as a ritual, because to me that's creating that inspired action for the
Yeah.
next step, being action focused. But it's a great way to reflect and celebrate all of those things, and as you say, again, visually see. But being a visual based business, you visually see in the written notes that you've shared, which takes you back to those emotive moments when you actually popped it in the jar originally. And doesn't that just fill our cups up as human beings with all of those elements as well? So I'm just going to shift gears slightly, because we've talked about intuition for being a competitive advantage, and we've touched on that. And we've talked about rituals, and I absolutely love this conversation around the rituals piece, because we do forget to do the rituals. And if we look at the cycle of nature, it does have that stop-start, and from a farming perspective. So how can we bring that cyclic nature as well as the intuition for a competitive advantage and rituals together? There's a little bit of a mixed up of, I'll just throw that at you, pick it up for me and run with it.
And that's, I think that's where you can go and start noticing what's working for you as a human being. We are all different. And for some of us, certain seasons will work better. So it's like knowing which season works better for you as an individual. And this goes back to Ayurveda. I'm an Ayurveda practitioner. So it's like going back to the season, depending on your own constitution, there is season where you thrive more than other season. So there is no rules about winter needs to be about rest, like in nature, nature is resting in winter and so on. Depending on your constitution, depending on the business you run, depending on where you are in your life, winter may actually be a time where you have lots of intuitive ideas and you want to take action and you want to create. It's not necessarily spring, where in nature everything is created in spring. The seeds are planted and nature is starting to quicken. Maybe for you, actually, your spring is the winter in nature. So it's like finding your own, and this comes from listening to you.
Yeah.
So my invitation is for anyone who is listening to this to look at the season. And if the season doesn't resonate with you, because maybe you live in a country like Australia where we only have 2 seasons, I find, compared to France where I really have like the 4 different seasons. So maybe it's more the cycle of the moon that you will connect with. And we know that the cycle of the moon has impact on the ocean. We know how much water we have in our bodies. So we know it's now proven by research how the moon cycle affects our mood, our creativity. So if you're more connected to the moon cycle, take a moment to connect. Like, am I more creative on, a waning moon or a waxing moon, or, on a new moon or a full moon? So taking a moment to just reflect for yourself. So again, it's making space for self-awareness, self-diagnosis, self-assessment, self-knowledge, so that, the PT Temple was saying it out loud in Delphi. It was written there, know self. And that's so true. It's like starting with knowing yourself, which is listening to your intuition, and then looking at which cycle works for you and honoring that in your planning, in your strategy, in your business, rather than following the pressure of Black Friday. You need to do Black Friday. No, actually, it comes in a time where I don't want to do Black Friday. Or Christmas, go hard during Christmas. Like, this is a time of the year. Just take your time to reclaim your own rhythm, your own intuitive rhythm, your own way of eating, your own way of being, and then you will have a way better harvest.
Yes, I love that, and I've got Peter Nichols, who's one of my dear friends and is often listening. So if he's listening, you can flick a little message on. He talks about enjoyment and energy, because he helps retirees refine the joy of their youth after they've retired with their identities, etc. And we often talk about that, when you lose yourself in something, you find yourself and your energy increases. So that's, that's that element of understanding where you are most in flow. So if I bring that back to an everyday example for me, I know creatively, thank you, that mornings are better for me to sit down and, be creative. Me trying to do that in the afternoon, not very, it's not really there. So it's understanding, those little nuances we've had. You've expanded on that beautifully. And I remember one of my coaches saying to me, for God's sake, Sally, learn to study yourself 95% of the time and strategies 5% of the time. And that was why I was so excited to talk to you, as it relates to that flow of understanding how we work, how we can bring in more of the intuition, which comes through that pausing process. So it really is about understanding your own individual, I'm going to call it a blueprint, what your blueprint is, as well as what your strategy is, taking that time to find the space. So from your perspective, with all of the different entrepreneur experiences you've had and entrepreneur experiences that you've had, how do people that struggle to bring in that space, what are some of the simple rituals that they can do to start bringing this in so they can have a starting point as they move into the new year?
Yes. So what I always say is starting very small. And there is this book about atomic habits, which many people must have read. It's a big bestseller, but it's starting with something very simple that you're going to do every day. And so it can be in the morning. You know, mention if you're a morning person and for you it's morning pages, and you want to write in your journal every morning and listen to your intuition from that space of flow of pure consciousness, do that. Which is the Artist Way book. I love to quote the sources and acknowledge the IP of those who wrote beautiful content, which I think is very important, because there are too many people who are trying to make, take someone else's thing and then make it their own. So I'm using that, which is my own integrity. So maybe it's morning pages and this flow of consciousness, this stream of thing, or maybe it's a silent walk with your dog in the morning, barefoot in nature, and then you have those moments of connection. Or maybe it's not realistic the morning, because like me, you have kids and you have lunch boxes and you have school drop off and all of this kind of stuff. After drop off, I allow myself a time to sit in my garden and spend some time connecting with, what do I want to do this day? How do I want to show up? What is my intention? What is the thing? So it's making this one moment, like brushing your teeth every day, which you will not miss brushing your teeth every morning. What is this other thing that you will do in your day where you're bringing your full self and your full intentionality? And I created this acronym with rituals. I am neurodivergent, so I love acronym. It's a way for my brain to remember. But yeah, I created this acronym around ritual, and the I stands for intentionality. Brushing your teeth is different to a ritual, because when you brush your teeth, you do it mechanically, whereas a ritual is something that you do with intention. So having this moment in your day where you're not going to miss it. And for me, it's like I have many moments of ritual in my day, but one of them is in the morning after school drop off, where I have this moment before I start my working day to be fully intentional and be like fully present. What do I want to achieve this day? Then I have another moment, which is after lunch, going for a walk and digesting my food, but also digesting all the things that have happened in the morning and gathering myself for the afternoon. I have another moment, which is prior to school pickup, reflecting on this day and now showing up in another role, which is a role of the mother rather than the role of the business owner. And then I have the end of the day. For me, I have a big moment at the end of the day where I journal, I pull some cards, I take a moment to reflect, pay my gratitude, look at my achievement for that day, really journal every evening. And yeah, it's just having those moments. So start with one thing that you're going to do for sure every day. There is like this 5-step routine for, your facial and things, which I never do. I'm very bad with these rituals. But some people are like doing this 5-step. For me, it's just washing my face, and that's the only thing I can do. But then I do it every day. So this is the one thing I can do for my face. But then with my other rituals, I'm pretty good. So it's like knowing, are you a 5-step person? Can you think about washing your face and putting this cream and then this cream and then this thing and then this thing? I'm bad at this, but I have one thing that I do every day, washing my face. Then with my rituals, I'm very good. I have a lot of rituals, but start with one thing.
And it is that start. It is that start, and it is start with that one thing. And my favorite word is consistency. So everyone knows if I'm going to give a Sally nag, it's to being consistent. And it's formulating that habit. And sometimes I know from my own experience, I've got to do that one thing, and I've almost got to trick myself into doing it, that one thing, at least the first week, to create the habit around it, to then get the enthusiasm to continue on and switch gears, or doing all those things that we need to do. I think it's really great that we've talked about the ability to slow down, the ability to bring in our ways of intuition. From your experience, because we've talked about in the intro, talked about intuition and profitability. Can I ask you to tie those two together in some of the experiences that you've had yourself and shared with clients?
Yes, definitely. So, for instance, there is one client which I'm allowed to share their success story because they shared it with me and it's part of the content that we have on the blog and the case study and so on. So, it's a client who, without following the investor's advice, without following anyone else's advice, felt called to open another country. So, it's a prop tech business about helping lots of people to create wealth in the property industry, where very often it's really hard to enter. There is a lot of barrier at entry and so on. So it's powered by AI and it's enabling people to create wealth when they were not born with wealth. So making wealth accessible to more people. So his name is Michael Roger. He's one of my clients. And he shared that by listening to his intuition, he felt called to open way before any signal were confirming other countries for the business. And we know in the startup world how it's about, no, go hard on one niche, go hard till you made this much, go hard till you validated this, go hard. And he didn't look at all of this. He was like, I feel the pull to go and open that country. And it's actually by opening that country that it took them to the next level. And now this year, they're turning 24 million a year in revenue. They are profitable. They've hired a lot of team members. They've opened another country. So now they're in 4 countries. And this is, those kind of moments where you listen deeply to that thing that doesn't make sense to anyone. No one
Correct.
knows why you're doing it. And
I think you're a crazy person.
And actually was, the placeholder title for Light It was, it. But I don't know, I want a framework in the title. But it's like, it, and you don't have to explain to anyone why you're doing it. You have to do that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. So we have come to the end, got to the end very, very fast. I'm going to ask you, as it relates as closing reflection, and it may be a repeat of what you've just said there, one insight that you'd like to leave with the audience today about the power of intuition and leadership. What would that insight be?
You got it inside you. You just need to make the space to listen to it. So stop listening to everyone else. The best thing I'd like every one of you who is listening to this today is just disconnect from anything and take 5, 10, 15 minutes without listening to a podcast, listening to anything, and listening in. So imagine putting all of these energies that you put into listening outward to listening inward.
Wow, that gave me big goosebumps. So I love that. So listening in, so listening inward, not listening outward. Thank you, Laetitia, for sharing so much wisdom with us. It's been absolutely amazing. I think to express, and I'll ask you to express this as we go to the end, in your words, the competitive advantage of intuition is? How would you answer?
It's you. And it's basically proven by research. Deloitte research proves that when we trust leaders to listen to their intuition, they make 25% more of profit. So it's like it's proven by research. So listening in, and that's where the competitive edge is you. And no one can copy you, even AI. They cannot. You are you with all your experience, your knowledge, your source connection, download history, all of this kind of thing that makes you unique. So you are the edge.
Fantastic. Thank you. And how is the best way for people to get in contact with you? We do have your website going across the ticker at the moment, but if you'd like to tell us the best way to connect with you.
So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me under Laetitia Andrac. If you love listening to my voice, you're not bored with my accent, I have a podcast, which is called the Essential Shift Podcast. And you can just connect with me on Instagram as well, essential.shift. And I'm always here to answer any messages that I receive there.
Yeah, beautiful. And I just want to add, for those that know me well, I love a good cyber stalk, and I've had lots of fun playing on Laetitia's website and socials, etc. And there's some really, really great resources and a free course from memory on there as well around intuition. So do jump onto her website, which is essentialshift.co, C-O, so not C-O-M.co. So do jump on and take a look around. You will not be disappointed. There's lots of incredible wisdom there. You've obviously got the book as an opportunity there as well to further explain the light framework. and much, much more. So once again, Laetitia, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom with us. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Sally.
You're very welcome. So to everyone, I'm going to sign off with don't forget to be. I'm also going to sign off with do make sure in this time of year, as we move into Christmas, that you take some time to pause and reflect before you get into the fast pace of the new year. So till then, I'll look forward to seeing you another time next week on another episode of Success Secrets Exposed. Take care.
Remember, if you want to be sought after and sold out, as well as being known as the obvious expert in your industry, you need to speak with Sally, our host of Success Secrets Exposed. Sally is the founder of Monetize Your Content, a done-for-you content marketing agency that helps you be easy to buy. See you next week on another episode of Success Secrets Exposed. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time or Wednesday mornings in Australia on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV.